Welcome to That's Entertaining, the show where events, entertainment, and technology collide. I'm your host, Arthur K., coming to you live from Fusion Events headquarters in Toronto. We say Toronto. We are streaming live on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I'm all dressed up for the 20th episode. It's very exciting. I'm channeling my Heisenberg here up on top and my Larry King on the bottom. But in all seriousness, I am very proud of the growth in this last 20 episodes. And I want to thank every single person who has watched or engaged with my content. I literally spend about 10 hours per episode preparing, from researching ideas, building out my live streaming software, creating shortcuts so I can run the show while I'm talking, and of course, finding and researching the best possible guests I can find. I also spend time practicing for each episode, if you can believe that or not. I actually record myself and I watch it back, and because, truly, if I've learned anything from being a musician, is that practice makes perfect. Now, to start the show, I thought we could do a little team building exercise. So what I want everyone to do is I want you to grab your mouse, okay? And if you don't have a mouse, you can just put your finger on your trackpad, okay? So everyone grab your mouse, put your finger on your trackpad. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a circle with your mouse, okay? Make a circle. Very good. You're doing perfect. And now I want you to stop right there on the like button, okay? And then just press that, okay? Press the like button. Fantastic. Now we're going to shift our mouse over to the repost and click on that, and you can share that to your network, because today is going to be a jam-packed episode. And trust me, you're going to want everyone in your network to see this. They will thank you. And then later in the show, I'll be joined by a very special guest, Aaron Kaufman. Aaron and I go way back, and today we're tackling some big industry topics like pricing for services, barriers to entry in events, the value of associations, and his exciting new venture, Dipper. Aaron has some strong opinions, so you will definitely want to stick around to check that out. So buckle up and let's go. Now, before we begin, I would love everyone to just drop into the chat and say hello, and let me know where you're watching from and what the weather is like where you are today. I'm going to look on here. We got some people in the chat. We got Samantha Mele is here. Thank you for the good vibes on the music. That's all AI generated. And happy 20th. Thank you so much, Melissa. Really appreciate you tuning in. And Chris Musgrave, also thanks so much for tuning in. Now, one of the missions, I got to remove that from the screen. I did that before, left that on screen the whole episode. One of the missions, I see. It's because I'm pushing my mouse or my spacebar. I didn't know spacebar does that. One of the missions of this podcast is to showcase innovative concepts and ideas that push boundaries in the events and entertainment industry. I want to inspire all of you event professionals out there to think beyond the usual, to try something bold, something memorable. Let's face it, our industry thrives on creativity and the ability to deliver experiences that people will never forget. So let's get into it. And we have a listener tuning in from Chile, but some sun coming through in Vancouver, BC. Can't see your name, but thank you so much for tuning in. So generative AI is revolutionizing the way we create and experience events. And while some of us are experimenting with tools like ChatGPT, most people still have no idea how far this technology can go. So today I'm going to showcase two creative examples of how generative AI is being used in events and marketing, with the hopes of providing some inspiration for you. First up, we have Dreamco's AI Dreamscape installation. And this project transformed human imagination into stunning visual art using AI models trained specifically for each location. It's not just innovative, it's sustainable and it's privacy focused. But don't just take my word for it. Let's take a look. We'll get that rolled up here.
Generative AI has taken the world by storm. It enables anyone to rapidly create new content without advanced technical skills. The cultural, philosophical, aesthetic, and legal questions raised will occupy us for years to come. To open up the discourse to the general public, we conceived an AI tool to capture our most personal experiences that yet often elude us, our dreams. For Design Shanghai in May 2023, we have created DreamCo, a machine to interpret dreams into visuals. We trained our proprietary Stable Diffusion model to connect user portrait and individual input across various parameters to synthesize a unique visual of the user in their described dream environment. Step 1. Take a photo of the user. Step 2. Receive instructions.
Welcome, Dreamer, to DreamCo. The plug-in board in front of you is your tool. Reflect on the prompts and connect each colored cable to its corresponding question. This will spark our creative AI to reimagine your dreams.
Step 3. Download your unique DreamCo visual. The contrast of the convoluted and obsolete hardware with the state-of-the-art, yet shapeless software emphasizes the extent of the technological shift we are witnessing. For many at the time, their first experience with generative AI, DreamCo evokes curiosity and sparks imagination of the potential of this new technology. During its premiere in Shanghai, DreamCo has been in use 10 hours each day non-stop and has generated over 2,000 dream visuals. Since then, the device has been traveling across Asia, with stops in cultural festivals and corporate events in Beijing, Suzhou, and Singapore, bringing the fascination of generative AI to societies all over.
Pretty cool, right? So what you have here is a Stable Diffusion model, which is actually running locally on a computer. So it's not requiring a cloud-based server that's using a lot of energy to create these images. They have the model, which is on the computer there, and it can run just on its own. So this is pretty cool, and it created a lot of buzz and a lot of social media impressions. And just some people in the events industry were maybe not that unaccustomed to like an AI virtual photo booth, but this is really cool because it sort of introduces generative AI to people who maybe haven't used it before. I like how it's got this sort of tactile way of creating your prompts where it asks you questions, then you have to connect cables and plug them into certain holes. So I think that's pretty unique, creative use of AI. So next, and actually I want to share with you, let's check this out. I created some AI images of my own. And, after experimenting with this, there's a good chance I may never hire a photographer again to do headshots for me. Let's take a look. So there's one. Tell me if you think that looks like me, right? Here's me. Okay. And then we have, let's try that one. Okay. Not bad, right? And then this is my event superhero look. So, yeah, really, really neat. Oh no, here's another superhero. There you go. Put that on my LinkedIn banner as event entertainment superhero. So let's move on to our next one, which is by Tellart, and it's an AI-powered dinner in 2050. And this experience, which has been showcased at COP28, reimagines our meals in a world where sustainability and food security take center stage. Guests share their favorite dishes, and AI turn them into climate-friendly versions with substitutions like grasshoppers for lamb and algae for broccoli. I don't know if I'm sold, but I'm in if it's going to save the world. It's an eye-opening way to rethink how our food choices impact the planet. So let's watch the video in action.
The AI-powered dinner in 2050 was the first of its kind interactive storytelling experience, making climate change real on a plate for visitors at COP28. Guests said their favorite meal into a microphone. Our custom AI model identified the key ingredients, then selected which ingredients had the highest carbon footprint based on UN data. It then chose sustainable alternatives specific to the UAE to generate a future version of this dish with information on its impact. This interactive dining experience uses machine learning to showcase how seemingly small, individual choices can have a ripple effect on our collective future. It was designed to be a reflective and playful way to shift daily habits by focusing on strengthening food security in a region that is already at the front lines of climate change. 18,000 meals were generated by delegates and guests over the week of COP28.
How cool is that? I mean, really creative way of using generative AI to tell a story, to teach something. And, technology wise, this isn't like super duper complicated or groundbreaking. I mean, there's some integration probably with ChatGPT and a visual model like Midjourney, or perhaps like DALL-E or something that's creating the images. But really cool, inspiring. I'm, excited to see how event professionals and creatives use AI to elevate events and educate people, tell stories, and be interesting to see. So now let's move on to our next segment. Now on to the main event. Joining me today is a man I've known for nearly 20 years, someone whose career I've watched evolve from a wedding decor company to being a top event management company. Aaron Kaufman is here to talk about his journey, the events landscape today, and Aaron is the owner of Fifth Element Group and his latest venture, Dipper, which is all about amplifying online and real-life presence. Aaron, help me welcome Aaron to the show, everybody. Let's make some noise. What's up, Aaron?
What's up? Man,
how are you doing?
Quite an entrance. I appreciate it.
Well, that's how we do on this show, So it's nice to see you. Thanks for joining me today.
Likewise, if you're gonna if you're gonna get me with the past, I mean, when we met, you were God Made Me Funky through and through, right? And that was the greatest. I'm gonna call it a party band, though I know it wasn't only a party band, but that was the greatest band to this date that we've ever worked with at this company. So,
thank you very much. That's actually you can see over here my that's our Juno Award nomination. It's like the Canadian Grammys, but that was like another lifetime ago when I was lived my life on stage.
Likewise.
So today's episode is titled State of the Industry because I want to get your take on how the industry is doing, good and bad. And the idea isn't to poo-poo the industry. The idea is to find areas of improvement and to have open conversations where we can discuss, reflect, and hopefully find some common ground for positive change. So before we jump into that, can you tell me how you ended up in the events industry to begin with, and tell us a little bit about your journey to get where you are today?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you would have asked me this question, 10 or 15 years ago, it would have been a much shorter answer. But, ultimately for me, I think it was just a progression through, loving to be on stage as a younger professional. I had the luxury of, touring and working with a national video dance party company, which gave me exposure to a lot of great people.
Is that much music?
No, it was
okay. It was a similar thing.
It was a competitor. It was a competitor, okay. And it did very well. It went national. I was both the on stage MC for the show as well as responsible for kind of sales and marketing for it. So I had a great time and moved to Vancouver to do that. had an opportunity to be on stage with great Canadian artists, like Maestro, for example, who I spent a bunch of time on stage with, Manzone and Strong, and some various people. Took me out to Vancouver as well to live for a little bit. And ultimately coming back after that, it was really the idea that I loved what I did. I loved the industry, but I felt there was so much more that was available to me. And I loved the connections I had with businesses and with corporate. And so jumped into that, and fast forward, 20 something years, and here we are, and we're kicking ass, and we're doing some fun things still. And I'm just excited about it today as I was on day one.
So can you tell, for those who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about Fifth Element Group? That's your baby, right?
Yeah,
What is it that you
absolutely. So
do? How does it evolved? And what is it about Fifth Element Group that you think makes it stand out from the rest?
Yeah, for sure. So Fifth Element Group is a full serve management, design and production firm. And so, we established this company simply because when I started in the industry, there was a trend basically for somebody to be the event planner at the time. And so those people would then call 10 other people who would all do little pieces of little jobs. And ultimately, when you got on site, unlike today, branded events were very, pieced together. They never looked right. It was, one vendor doing chair covers and one vendor doing linens and one vendor doing all these weird things. And it just never worked out. And so my idea was always to amalgamate all of those services into one place, and not necessarily through inventory, which was a phase that I think the industry went through kind of in the late 2000s and early 2010 to maybe 2015, where there was big houses that were buying everything, and decor companies were trying to own everything. Never the goal to do that, because when you have inventory, your job becomes less about design and more about selling. And so our concept was always to have a brand that we are known for in terms of design, executing on that, but being able to understand that at times we may need to order things from vendors, but what we would never order is their design, their aesthetic, their floor plan. Right. And so what sets us apart is that we now are an agency that works across North America. We manage and design in-house, which of course leads to operational efficiencies. It leads to consistency in design and aesthetic. It allows us to work with big brands. It also allows us, based on the way that we charge and our pricing structure, it allows us to determine where dollars should go, meaning that we can put an emphasis on AV for one job, and we can put an emphasis on decor for another job and still make the same amount of money internally. And for us, that's a huge win, because clients know to expect that they're going to get the best possible job for their needs and not just what's going to make us more money.
That's a great answer. I think I agree with you that I feel like owning an inventory is sort of stifling, because you're limited creatively with what you have. You want to use your inventory, right? So you're just constantly repurposing it and reusing it, and it sort of limits your creativity. So you've kind of taken the approach of a full service event company. You manage everything from the top down.
We've done crazy things, like we've done customized work, like dropping tables from ceilings. We've ordered decor from Europe and Croatia, and specialized string artists in all sorts of places. But the truth of the matter is that an event not only is one take, but should only be done once, right? That's your creative experience. And so I don't really believe in repurposing things. There are a few things that we will keep around, just in the event that we have to do some charitable work or other things, and we can certainly help in those areas, some of our more interesting and fun pieces. But otherwise, I don't sell the same concept twice, because no client wants the same concept twice. And so for us, this is really just about ensuring that when we go through the process with a client, we understand their needs, we take into account their wants, and we deliver to them something that's unique for them and their guests and their programs.
Awesome. And now that we have a little bit more background on you and your company, let's dive into the state of the events industry. Something I see you talk about online. Sure. can you share your high level perspective on how you think the events industry is going right now? And please be, I'm sure you will be, as specific as possible. Um, Take it away, brother.
Yeah, listen.
Give
So,
us the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Good, the bad, and the ugly. Here we go. Well, the thing is that, the first thing that comes to mind for me really is that you continue to call it an industry. And so one of the things I've spent a lot of time with over the past few years is the idea of the fact that we really aren't in an industry. And we're really more, as my friend Joe Goldblatt, who was the founder of the International Special Event Association, as he told me, we're really a vocation, right? And so what creates an industry versus what creates a vocation? An industry is something that has principles to guide it. It has a code of ethics. It has an overseeing body that is active. It has rules and guidelines. It has expectations in terms of pricing, costing. And does our industry have any of that stuff? I would argue no. And so the state of our vocation right now is that we're still relatively young. I think we have the opportunity to really, go one way or the other, but we have to work as a unit to make sure that not only are we consistent in terms of what we're doing, but that clients can expect consistency on their end. So we need to teach and educate clients on what it is that we do and what they should be expecting from the professionals they work with. So I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I pressed
There you
mute,
are.
so I wasn't. Yeah, I was going to say I use the word industry because I have because of lack of better terms to use, and I think you have a very good point there, but that this is sort of vocational, or it's a job title versus an industry. Now, I want to get a little bit more specific with you on your ideas and how do we change that, because I mean you have opinions about how things are, but what is the roadmap to changing that? Now, I know you said ethics, standards, um, those types of things, pricing, sort of standards or guidelines. Like when you go to the dentist, you go to dentist A, dentist B. There's this, a general pricing. Now, if you're going to a specialist or something, like when you're hiring a lawyer, maybe for example, the prices can vary, but there's a sort of average industry expectation in terms of price. How does the events industry or the events vocation go from vocation to industry, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think if you've ever watched shows like Mad Men, right, or anything around creative industries, what you would find is that all of those industries had to mature from somewhere. So you had small businesses that eventually kind of folded into bigger businesses, and in the case of ad and marketing agencies, are still doing that. You have some that have 7 and 8 and 9 names, and have been folded back and forth a number of times. But ultimately, you find that the industries mature because the people who started it grow it and find more ways to create revenue, find more ways to create bigger businesses, find more ways to create value for clients, and find more service offerings. And I think what we have found with our industry is that the older demographic that started our industry, let's just say, 40 years ago, they have not wanted to create change because they did make some money and things were okay. And they went through a number of, really great periods. But what has happened is contraction has not happened in our industry. Clients have no idea what to expect, and standards were never set. So we have all these, I know you want to touch on associations after, but we have all these associations. We don't have really any guiding lights or any people in our industry who are leading in terms of what we should look to for growth. And so instead, you have fragmentation. You have really great people who are running as solopreneurs. I see a lot of, one person businesses, and I respect everyone for their hustle. But at the end of the day, we don't have an industry of people who are getting rich doing what we're doing. And if you look closely to ad marketing and PR, they've figured it out. They've built agencies. They have standardization in terms of pricing. You know what you can expect. Now, some agencies clearly are more expensive than others. Ones that are more expensive have kind of earned that status through awards, their work, procurement of clients, et cetera. We don't really do that, right? We're just kind of a number of mom and pop shops running around. Everyone kind of gets to say what they want and do what they want and behave how they want. And, it's really, it's just funny to see that we've never sat down as a group of people, though everyone's got an opinion on everything. Everyone in this industry has an opinion of, we should be doing this. We are this, we have to do this. We talk about this, we should behave like this, but nobody actually does shit about it. And so I think what you're going to find is right now we're at a real interesting inflection point where either as a group of people, we legitimize an industry, or we find that over the next 10 to 15 years, ad and marketing agencies are really going to bring what we do in-house because they can charge for it, right? They charge hourly. They bring 3, 4, 5 people to a meeting, right? They charge in 100, 200, 300 hour buckets to major corporations. Corporations pay it because they want the best teams. And so ultimately what you're going to find is that marketing agencies especially are going to hire in-house event teams. They're going to send 5 people to a meeting. They're going to bill out $2,000 or $3,000 an hour for those meetings. And they're going to stop coming to people like me, like a lot of people watching, because why would they bother anymore? They see where the money is. There's money to be made and we're not making it. So someone's got to
don't you worry that
that
will drive the price of events too high? If it gets put in the marketing agency bucket, and you're saying like they're billing.
They be higher?
Well,
what's too high? Like, what should an event cost right now?
So I guess the question is like, do you see the events industry being Nike, Apple, Google? Though there's 3, 4 large companies that sort of own the entire industry, and does that make it an industry? There's a question here on that. There's a question here on the LinkedIn from Chris Musgrave, who says, "Would a unit then not become your definition of industry?" And many already do, or white label event production companies under their umbrella. So just some comments and questions there.
Yeah. So here's what I think to answer your question. I think there's lots of room for competition. I think there are some agencies that are better than others, but we can't all be 1, 2 person, 5 person, 10 person agencies, right? Because the truth of the matter is that we get excited when, one of those types of companies that you just mentioned, or Coca-Cola or someone else, and it's a race to the bottom, right? Everybody is willing to work for enough to pay for their rent and their own salary. Solopreneurs have no overhead or very little, right? And how can you grow? How can employees make more money? How can salaries grow? How can the cost of events grow? How can all of these things grow if everyone just continues to fragment and race to the bottom, right? And so, I can't tell you how many times I run into a challenge where we just, we know inherently that we're filling out an RFP or we're bidding on a job. And I look at it and I go, well, we're going to get 80 out of 80 on the first 80 points, but we're going to be the highest price company. So we'll be the best company that doesn't win. Right. And that's insane to me. And so that's because other companies are okay getting 76 or 77 or 75 because they know that they'll just be the cheapest. Right. And they'll end up with 81 or 82 points and I'll end up with 80 and they'll win. And so, and then clients are unhappy because they're not getting the top or the best of the best because the bidding process is supposed to be fair. And then they're not happy. And then they reduce the overall spend for their event, or they're not seeing return for their event. They stop doing events. It's a bad thing. And so really for me, what I look at is, how do we create a real industry where growth can happen, where people want to stay in companies and work for companies as opposed to just going on their own, right? How do you find and mature an industry that can actually support people's livelihoods and their families and pay them properly and not expect them to do 3 different people's jobs and have proper job descriptions and have fulfilling lives in an industry you like? right? We continuously hang our hat on this thing that we're the most stressful industry, which is bullshit, by the way. But we hang our hat on this New York Times article every year, and we give PR to it and whatever else, which is why we keep getting published in it. But it should never be that way. The reason why it's that way is because you have people doing 10 different people's jobs. Nobody gets paid what they really should in our industry. Nobody understands how to build a proper company. Now, there are very few, right? And my guiding light, for example, in this industry is Kolya Doms, right? If anyone's heard of the company Vok Doms, Kolya is the owner of that. That's a family business that started with his father. I've studied it greatly. He knows that. And so, one of the things for me is I respect the fact that they started a company, built a company. They're out of Germany. They have offices, I believe, in Hong Kong and various other places. And that is a real business. And they are doing amazing work, not only on events, but with AI, with all sorts of things. When you show AI videos like that, I go, I'll never be able to get into that realm. I'm just not big enough. I don't drive the revenues necessary to put in the time. I'll never be able to hire someone specifically who will work on the growth in that area in terms of live experiences. It's just not going to be possible. And I know it. Right. And so I think that's because ultimately we just can never get to that point where we go, there's 30 companies, 40 companies, and then there's some smaller agencies and this and that. That's an industry. There's small marketing companies, big marketing companies, consultants, but we don't have the big. Right? Nobody aims to build a big event company for some reason, and that's insane.
It's very hard to scale. It seems not many people have been successful at doing
Absolutely.
it. So the chat's
Right.
blowing up here. So I want to get some of these comments here. So Samantha Mele says marketing agencies will hire the fractional independent planners, which I am definitely seeing some of that going on.
I want to stop right there because yes, they might, but the goal of working is to make money. I don't want to be okay, right? I'm working to be my best. I'm working to, make good money and make good money for the people around me and my staff and my team. Yes, there are certainly opportunities for everybody, but I think my point is, because I can see where the comments are going to go with this, there are always going to be opportunities for whatever you want to do. But when you asked me how to change from a vocation to an industry, it's by setting these standards and growth and all of these things and keeping teams together, right? Fractional is somebody working on their own, but how do you create that, that brand around events? Is there a big event company that you go, their brand is so cool, right? How do you do that without growing a team and people and hiring marketing people and hiring PR people and hiring a design team and a production team? How do you do that? You can't. Right. So yes, to everyone who's going to say there's always going to be opportunities, there's always going to be this. Yes, there will be. But the point for me is that those exist and will always exist, but we don't have an industry to lean on so that those people can choose that. A lot of them just have no choice.
We have a comment here from Chris I want to check out here. So it says, I'm not sure about standards being set as correctly pointed out. Too many voices and opinions to allow such constraints. The current push of monopolistic mega vendors will be the biggest threat to many, I feel, over the next 10 years. He obviously disagrees with you.
A lot of event businesses shouldn't be in business. It's just driving down the bottom line for everybody. I think that a lot of people who are running event businesses should actually go work for other people and help create bigger companies and more revenue and more earning possibility. And that's just my belief. It's always been my belief. And, I'll tell you that during COVID, I was called a lot of things because I was clear that I thought, when everyone freaked out, right, I said, well, this is the problem with not having businesses that have invested in people, that have, capital to work with and all these things, right? This is the problem. And what percentage of our industry left, right? And I'll use the term industry for the sake of, making sure everyone understands, but what percentage of our industry left and what percentage of our industry are new now over the past 3 years? I think the number I read was close to 70, right? And how come?
That as well.
They saw it was a dead end, right? They realized there's no money, there's no capital, there's no investment, there's no growth, there's no company potential. Why would I stay here anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think people were, COVID threw a wrench in that. I think that was a exceptional sort of example, um, but it's definitely a complicated issue.
Yeah.
Um, the industry right now is made up of many small companies, independent planners, and I'm struggling to see how we, let's talk about the associations because that is what they're supposed to be there for. I don't have to name any names. There's many different types of event associations. Are they not doing a good job? Are they failing the events industry? What could they be doing better? And should they play a role in this, um, in the future of the industry?
Well, so let me put this back in you. You've been in this a long time. Who is the overseeing body of the event industry?
People in the industry.
Right. So specifically, it's called the Event Industry Council.
Right.
Right. So they're supposed to be the overseeing body. What have they done for the industry?
I know nothing about the Events Industry Council. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
So
And
they manage all
they're
event associations? They're the overseeing
supposed to.
body?
In fact, their board is made up of all of the leaders of the other associations, including PCMA. So therein lies part of the challenge, right? And so the heads over COVID of the EIC decided that they were going to do very little to nothing except tell people to light their houses up in blue so that only we knew what was going on. I think at the end of the day, what really happened is now you have a bunch of industry associations that are all, while they're maybe claim not for profit, they're just teaching. So you have industry people teaching other industry people. And then you have, some tourism boards and, meetings, mean business and all these other things who are, lobbying and talking to people. But again, you have 20 different options of 20 different organizations, all with 20 different leadership groups doing 20 different things. How on earth are we getting ahead? Right? Where is the benefit to the people who are working in the industry? Why are all the associations made up of senior executives of major hotel companies? Right? This is the weirdest thing. And I have been the president of an association here. I've been the president of the largest charity in the industry. I've done it. I've done all of it. I've sat in all the meetings. So, you can say what you want, but at the end of the day, for me, our businesses, our industry is not being represented by the people who are on the ground every day doing the work, right? And so what you have is this weird group, all fragmented out, all talking about different things. One's talking about sustainability, one's talking about tourism, but they're all claiming to be responsible for meetings and events industry, right? And so we get nowhere. And I want to clarify for me, when we talk about the Event Industry Council, and I can see, I'm watching the chat also, I can see Melissa posted that, thank you. One of the things that I get out of this is, how do we go about putting first steps into creating our industry through the associations or through the Event Industry Council? For me, it's very simple, right? I've been a big proponent of this, and what I say is, let's teach every potential client out there that in order to hire any event professional, the first thing you need to do is see their insurance certificate with a $5 million liability clause, period. No questions asked. I know what that costs my company every year, right? It's in the tens of thousands, right? Well, what happens if all of a sudden we do that? Well, we create a business environment whereby clients know that they should be, as a basic standard, looking for companies who have this insurance policy. On the other side, though, what does it do? Well, people can't just fragment off and open their own companies without a little bit of capital, right? You have to be able to buy that insurance policy before you can have your own company and before clients may potentially hire you. That's a proper business environment. That's putting in some rules and some plans around what people should look for. And that's also setting a barrier to entry, some capital, right? That's a basic business function. In order to open a business, you have to have capital, except in the event industry. So what you have is you have a whole bunch of people who get involved in associations as a means to grow without having put any capital into their business, without any rules, no ethics, no code of conduct, and they're just running businesses, right? And so the associations, shame on them, take anyone's money. The Event Industry Council, shame on them, does nothing to promote a proper code of ethics, rules, standardization. And we don't create a business environment whereby clients expect to see any standard form of proof that you are a real business.
I mean, it is not, for a small solopreneur, it is not that difficult or expensive to obtain a $5 million liability insurance. So that's, when you have revenues are higher, you're probably, paying more. But so that's one thing I'm like, well, okay, I understand the investment of capital, I think, but it's a very, people have a very, can easily sort of make themselves appear or seem like they have things or they got things together when they don't. So I do see a little bit of a problem with that. But how do we sort of lobby the Events Industry Council, or is the Events Industry Council even active? Is it worth even bothering? Do we need a new body? How do we get these associations to come together and merge to be one?
Stop paying for membership fees. Stop going to their conferences. Stop paying for membership fees. Bottom line. Take the money back from where you're giving it to. You're allowing them to operate, right? Not you, but everybody, right? Stop paying, right? I can tell you currently, with my status in the industry, I am not a member of one association.
Now, okay, so let me take it a different direction for a sec. So you have been a president, you have been involved, and when you're starting out, I mean, there must have been some opportunities that you got out of being involved in those associations, right? So when let's say everybody stops paying their membership dues and the associations implode, how do people get into the events industry? I mean, you just have to get a job out of college working for a major event agency and just work your way up, just like in every other industry, or like, what's your thoughts on that?
You just answered your own question, right? Yeah. You do what you did in every other industry. Now, should there be, so if you take the Canadian Marketing Association, for example, they are an overseeing group where they set, some basic rules and guidelines, and there are some standards. And so, yes, you get your job out of college, you go work for a company, you grow through a company, you learn the ins and outs of the industry, you go to, as many things as you can, you find ways to go to networking events and do all sorts of other things. And I think that that's really how you set yourself up for a career. I think, where you find yourself now is that you don't really know what's real. You don't know who the best people are. You don't know who the best association is. And I can tell you that, yes, there was benefit for me for sure. The benefit was, the network, but did I make any more money because I was a member of an association? In fact, I'll go a step further. I also was a CSEP through ILEA, and I let my designation lapse because nobody even knew what it was and nobody cared, right? I never got one job because I said, I'm more educated. I have a designation in this industry. I've gone through this program. I've studied this. I know this. Never got one more job because of it.
I have been hearing that as of late that the CSCP designation is something that employers are starting to look for, but I don't know. I don't have it.
I think we have to look at a couple of things though. What are employers looking for, and what do, again, growing companies, what do they look for? But then what are clients looking for? Because the truth for me is I have a great team and a great staff, and none of them came to me with CSEPs or CMPs or anything like that. And we've had a ton of success, right? And so certainly
We lost you for a little second there. You
Here I am.
glitched, but you're back.
So I'm not hiring based on that, on any of those designations. And we've had, we're 21 years in business. We're just fine, right? I think what we need to be concerned about is what clients are looking for, right?
Do they
Is
even
this
know?
making, we want to talk all this shit about the industry and this and who's this and what's, but clients are the ones that we're trying to attract. And so who cares what we're doing internally? Why do we have all these associations? Are they making us money? Because that's the last thing we worry about as an industry, right? When we get together and we don't talk about how to make more money.
I'm curious, chat. Anyone making money off being a member of an association? I want to ask you, because this conversation is going by so quickly. So let's talk about a sort of tactile thing that people can do right now in their own businesses to at least elevate, because it's going to take some time, if ever we're going to get to the place that you're talking about, right? So let's talk a little bit about the pricing conversation. There are quite a few different models of how event agencies charge for their services. Is that a problem? And if so, what do you think is the most ethical way to make money in the events industry and still make a decent profit? And please be as specific as you can.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think number one, it's really important that we stop hiding how we're making money. I think people get paid based on the value, the perceived value, I guess, of what they bring to the table, their experiences, etc. So there is a couple of things that really, really needs to be important. Number one, we don't have to hide that we're making money. So everyone in this industry is very afraid, to say I'm making money, but we're supposed to make money. And so I think that's the first thing, right? You don't just hide money, because of inevitably at this point, everyone gets caught at some point. Oh, how are you making money? Did you upcharge this? Did you upcharge that? Did you upcharge this? Where's the money? Can I, sometimes government will come back and say, can I see the original contract? And then you're kind of screwed there. Stop hiding, right? You're allowed to make money. It's okay. So that's number one. Number two, never, never, never pass on industry discounts. Don't do it. Your discount is there because the volume of work that you do and the status that your company has in the industry. You do not need to then discount your vendors' services to your clients. That's not necessary. So
I'm giving you the hearts for that one. You're getting floating hearts,
right.
And there you go.
Absolutely. You need to be clear with your client about what's happening, but you don't owe them a discount. Number three, clients do not get to hire your vendors directly ever, right? That's not the way this works. You're being hired and paid to produce a program, an event, an activation, whatever it is. That's on you. You don't then have to tell them all of the vendors that you work with so that your value decreases. Fifth Element does two things. Number one, we charge a fee for our work. Oftentimes, it's either a fixed fee based on a transparent budget, or it's a percentage of the overall budget. But that's our formula. And then we are clear with clients that we never upcharge on anything. They pay retail for everything we bring in. And so that's just clear for us. There is no surprises. Everything is line itemed. We don't just bucket items. We don't say event cost X amount of dollars. Everything is clear, everything line itemed. You want add one, subtract one, exactly what change is happening with your budget. That's how this needs to be done. But I want to tell everybody who's watching, I know some of the people who are making comments, I don't know some, but at the end of the day, I want to urge everybody, it's okay to make money. You're supposed to make money. You're on mute again.
Oh yeah, I do that because I'm coughing in the background, and when you're doing like 10 million things here at the same time. But you got the air horn for that, because that is true. We do need to make money. I am also in agreement with you on industry discounts. One of the challenges that I find, or one of sort of my pet peeves, is that there are too many middlemen in this industry. And like you said, it's by the time the client is getting charged, there's like 2-3 people in the middle, And it really is just not a good thing because it just makes events more expensive than they need to be. I don't know what the solution to that is, but especially in the entertainment world, there's definitely a lot of middlemen.
Arthur, I would just say honesty, right? Like at the end of the day, you have to be able to say to a client, you can't afford that, or you don't have the money for that, or you got to give me more money. I don't see why we have such a problem as people pleasers to say that. And I think if you look at the model of marketing and advertising, when they finish their bucket of hours, do you think they keep working and then say to a client, you know what, I got this? No. When they're, 90% done, they'll call a client and go, we're going to need X amount of more hours. It's going to cost you this much. Are you going to pony up or are we done? Right. But for us, it's like, oh, you want to add this? I got it. Don't worry. Oh, no problem. You want 10% off? I'll give you 10% off. That's not how business works. And that's why we can't retain people. And that's why people have to go, do their own thing. And Samantha had said earlier, pay staff well. I agree with her 100%. My staff has been here, I have staff here 8 years, 7 years, 6 years. I think that, we do our best to take care of them, but I believe we can do that because we're charging appropriately for the work we need to do. And I have to tell you that, I've fired a couple of clients this year simply because they later on, after winning a job or being awarded a job, they added all kinds of things to the scope of work. And I said, I don't mind doing those things, but it's going to cost you this much more. They said, we agreed to a price. I said, we agreed to a scope of work. I didn't like it. And we didn't work with them. And does that hurt me? Of course it does. Right? We spend a lot of time trying to win our jobs, but at the end of the day, I'm not working for free.
Wise words. Wise words. Now, I know that you are also getting involved in the branding field with your new venture, Dipper. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Dipper Dipper stands for Digital In-Person Public Relations, and so I am working with a wonderful partner. Her name is Kylie Renouf, and she is a digital personal branding expert. And so we started working together simply because, for people who don't know me, my brand can be, a little bit brash for this industry. And so, I've spent the last 10 years on stages and talking, and I got together with her to specifically talk about, my brand and how I operate and what I do. And ultimately, a lot of it came down to, not only do I have no idea what to do online really, but I also have a lot of ideas and I tend to do really well in person. And so she said to me, I think this is a lost art, this in person. And what I really think is important is that so many digital people are building personal brands, but not enough in-person people are contributing to the conversation. I spent 20 years being an expert in this industry in in-person public relations. And so I decided to join up with her, and we've been working with major brands, corporations, executives, CEOs, and we've been having a lot of fun, not only helping them with their digital brand and their voice, but I get an opportunity to teach people how to actually behave in person. And sometimes it's just the small things, even for entrepreneurs, like make sure you shake a hand, make sure you're knowledgeable in pop culture, make sure you're familiar with the people who be in the room, make sure you're not the smartest person in the room, make sure you listen more than you speak. There's just so many things. And Arthur, like you, I started my business and needed to be out all the time, right? And I mean, we can remember from way back, you had to be out every night, pretty much in person. And I'll tell a quick anecdote. But when I started Fifth Element, it was actually spelled with the number 5 TH. And that's because at the time, while there was certainly internet and search engines,
SEO, right?
Right. Well, most people actually would go to the yellow pages. And so, I didn't want to be first star or something like that. So Fifth just came easy for me. And I was still at the top of the yellow pages for event planning. And it worked, right? Years later, my wife told me it was immature and I had to change it because nobody uses yellow pages anymore. But for me right now, working with and working on Dipper and working with such tremendous people and companies that we're working with a lot of sales teams. We're working with a lot of CMOs and CEOs. just around which rooms to be in strategically, how to find the right people, how to engage them in person, and the idea that you can build brand at scale online versus you can cultivate better relationships in person. That's just become such an interesting kind of place where a person is kind of meeting their own brand, right, between digital and in person. And the thing that I'm teaching a lot is serendipity, right? So the idea that that's the one thing that you'll never find online, that holy shit moment where you're talking to someone and that clicks, right? And everyone thinks digital happens, digital branding happens at scale where you can reach 1,000 people, and you can very quickly, but I can have a conversation with one other person. They can refer me to 3 other people, right? I can do one job for that person and 8 other companies want to hire me. And so the ROI, or the return on engagement in person, for me, is far greater than anything else I can do online. That being said, I am having a lot of fun building my brand online. I'm having a ton of fun doing things like this. So it's a great thing to kind of do. You can follow Kylie on LinkedIn. It's Kylie, Renouf. You can find us at DIPPR. We're consulting with a ton of people, and I'm having a ton of fun doing it.
Awesome. And I know Aaron also has related to that fifth element with the 5, Aaron also has a secret to winning all the industry awards. It's the double A in his name, which makes him appear at the top of every single list. So if you want to name,
it's actually the AK, the AK deal.
Yeah, I'm AK too, but I don't appear at the top of all the lists. You do. So, so before we go, I want to ask you, because where do you look for your inspiration, and where do you look, to find inspiration for your, not just like in business, but in events, because you are producing, really high end, really engaging, interactive events. Where do you get your inspiration?
Well, I have a 14-year-old daughter who's turning 14 today. She gives me a ton of inspiration. I get to stay young and cool watching her on, TikTok, and
maybe young, Aaron. I don't know about cool, buddy.
Yeah, well, I get to learn what a skibbity rizzler is, and
I know
all
that
these
too.
kind of really fun things. Right. So all of these kind of fun things. So I do look to the young people in my life. My team is also incredible in terms of kind of making sure that we stay on top of trends, and they keep me kind of up to date on things that's going on. And then I look outside of the industry a lot. I believe that a lot of the creativity in the industry is recycled, and I'll save that for a part 2 maybe at some point. But ultimately, I like to look outside, and I like to look at just what's going on in the world. Truth be told, though, I started designing events when this company first opened. I don't design as much anymore, but I used to just design with this idea that I would call the venue I was going to be working at. I'd sit in the middle of the room while it was empty, and I would just visualize where things go. And I think to some extent, that's still the best way to do it, right? Everything's got to be unique. And so the nice thing is that people have an expectation that when you're going to hire Fifth Element Group, you're going to get an original, unique design. We're going to push boundaries, and we're going to create something that's a live experience. And that's why we're known as North America's leading live experience firm. So our design work is really good. Obviously, our management work is really good. But at the end of the day, we're creating experiences that very few people can. And so that's really where I find my inspiration. I look inside and I think, what would I want to be a part of? What does the journey look like from the guest perspective? And how do I leave them, impressed or wanting more? Or how do I help an organization sell tickets tonight for next year's event, right? What do I have to do in order to impress upon people that Fifth Element Group was here, we were hired for the work that we done, and now we're paying dividends for that? And that's really what goes into my motivation.
Awesome. Do you have any, before we wrap it up, any parting words you want to share to the events industry out there, the vocational event planners out there?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I love that Samantha engaged here, although I appreciate everyone's engagement, but I know how hard she works, and I appreciate both her offline and in-person brand. And I think she knows that. So, well done to her for carving out a niche in the industry. I think for everyone else who's kind of watching and listening as we go, I would say that you really need to build a brand and build a company and build a concept that you're going to believe in, not for the next year or 2 years. Don't create something that you can just pivot from so easily, but lean into it. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be challenging. Make friends along the way, and enjoy it, right? Enjoy every sense of it, but work to get rich, right? You may not, but work for it, right? And enjoy the ride. It's a fun ride. But I would say ultimately make sure that you are continue to work on yourself, on your business, and continue to have future plans for growth, because I think the opportunities are going to come if we can get our shit together and get it straight.
And to add to that, I'll say you have to love what you do. That is the secret to my success. It is, money is great, and I've been there, many years in the wedding industry, made a lot of money, was miserable. So, I feel happy now. I'm doing what I love to do. I'm really leaning in and focusing on, what really makes me happy. So I think that's good advice. Now, Aaron, I want to thank you so much for coming on the pod today. I think you have some really interesting ideas. I, want to continue to facilitate these types of conversations. Maybe you'll come back next year and we'll, do a sort of rewind, check in, see how things have progressed, if at all. Because, we just don't know. We just have to see. Do you have a lot of faith that what you're talking about is going to come to fruition in the future? Or do you feel like we are just going to stay like the way it is, status quo?
I look at the last two commenters in particular, Samantha Millie and Carly Silverstein. I know our industry is in great hands. I know, having talked to both of them, that there are young people or younger people. I still like to think I'm somewhat young, but younger people who have the same perspective and share the same ideas about growing businesses and about legitimizing what we do. So cautiously optimistic. I think if the older guard can get out of the way and let some of these young, hungry people kind of run the way things would go, I think we'd have new associations, new leadership, fresh ideas. And I think we'd surprise some people with how smart some of our industry professionals are. So I like to think that at the end of the day, this is going to become an industry. I just think it's a little too much in its infancy to be there now, but we'll see. We'll see as the time comes. And I hope to come back.
It's good to end on a high note. So I appreciate that. So Aaron, if you want to connect with Aaron, what's the best way? Although I think most of the people who are watching this live are already connected with you probably, but we're going to have a bunch of people watching this after the fact. What's the best way to connect with Aaron Kaufman and Fifth Element Group?
Yeah. So obviously, find me via LinkedIn. That's always easy. And I'm sure the link will be somewhere here or clickable somewhere. But otherwise, I'm just good for an email. It's Aaron, Aaron at fifth, FIFTH, elementgroup.com. If you want to see some of our work, you can hop onto Instagram. It's Fifth Element GRP. And that's with the @ sign, of course, at the beginning. And otherwise, you know what? You can always reach out anyway. I'm always happy to talk, meet, let people buy me a coffee if they'd like. And at the end of the day, I love the industry. I love what we do. I love teaching a little bit about it. And I hope that, if we're able to impact 1 or 2 people through this, then, we did the job today. And good on you for continuing to do this 20 episodes in. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Aaron. I hope you have a wonderful day. I really appreciate you being on the pod, and we'll have to catch up again soon. So I'll talk to you soon, Aaron. Ciao. All right. So that brings to conclusion episode 20, the final episode in my second season of That's Entertaining. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. I think it's really important that we have these conversations and that we're okay with disagreeing with each other, and that's how we are going to move things forward. So I again want to remind you, if you enjoyed the content, to please like, you can subscribe, you can follow me, you can connect with me, you can ding my bell, you can do all those things. And that's it for today. So until next time, this is Arthur K. signing out.
Making sure your kids stay keen.